الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كل نفس ذائقة الموت سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Just a few hours ago, here in Pakistan, we have the system of madrasas, which is known as Wifaqul Madaris Al-Arabiya, and all the different institutions of Islamic learning, these madaris, they run under that board. And that board is headed by a rector or a director, is known as the president of that board of madaris. And just a few hours ago, we received the news that uh, the president or the rector, Hazrat Abdul Razak Sikandar, Rahmatullah alayh, he passed away. And that was one of the very scholarly personality in Pakistan who had spent his entire life in the khidmat of Deen. He was also the president of a very famous madrasa in Karachi by the name of Binori Town Madrasa. And very muttaqi, very pious. He was a Shaykh al-Mashayikh. He was the teacher of many of the ulama, leading scholars and mufti. He was their teacher. And he passed away today. And just a few minutes ago, there was a Salat al-Janaza where many people, whenever anyone passes away, it's a time that we should remind ourselves of this hakikat, that all of us here are living for some temporary time. This is not a permanent abode. People pass by, they went before us, and we will be coming after them. The Prophet ﷺ in a Hadith Mubarakah mentioned that one of the most intelligent person, one of the signs of intelligence, man akyasun nas, that person is the most intelligent out of all of humanity, is that individual aktharuhum zikran lil maut, one who remembers his death abundantly. So this means remembering death is a sign of intelligence. And today, how many of us we remember our death? Hardly anyone. And if we don't remember our death, then how can a person prepare for their death? We remember many things today. We remember how to live in this dunya, how to make effort in this dunya, how to earn this dunya. But Maut, zikr of Maut, what will happen after Maut, these are things that we don't think about, we don't remember. That's why in a hadith the Prophet ﷺ said that Ad-dunya sijanul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. That this dunya will be a prison for the believer and will be a jannat for the kafir. Yani when a person comes in this world, when we bring iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to let go of our wishes. We have to let go of our desires. And we have to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes us to do. This is the way of a believer. And that person who subdues their nafs and does what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to do, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a place called Jannat. And in Jannat, whatever they desire, whatever their wishes are, Allah ta'ala will give them. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. So whatever they will think, they will want, they will desire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Jannat as a place where all their wishes will be fulfilled. This dunya is a place of amal. It's Darul Amal. It's an abode where we have to make effort. Like there is a farmer who has to put the seed under the soil. So whatever seeds he puts under the soil, that is what he will be able to reap. Exactly in the same way, this dunya is a place where we have to put the seed of effort and amal. And in Qiyamah, in Akhirah, whatever amal we do, we will reap the reward or the punishment for those amal. That's why in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has linked Iman with amal. Alladina amanu wa amilu salihat. Throughout the Quran, you will find this. Aman, Iman, and Amal. Interestingly, it doesn't even say Iman and Ilm, because Ilm alone without Amal is not beneficial, will not be able to save us, will not be of any benefit. That Ilm also needs to be translated into Amal. That's why over and over again, Najat, success, Falah, salvation is dependent on Iman and Amal. Amalu Salih. Allazina amanu wa amilu salihat. When a person passes away, so if anyone has had a chance to go to the graveyard, we will see that the person is buried inside the grave. And many times we see that a person there, they announce that, look, this is a reminder for all of us. It's a reminder that this person has left, and look at him. He went alone. There's nothing with him. We spend our whole life earning wealth, loving wealth, getting the things of this dunya. But when a person has to leave, we leave empty-handed. Every single individual, their wealth will be beneficial to them up till their grave. But the moment a person passes away, then their wealth is no longer their wealth. That now becomes inheritance. It's warasa. 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 It's warasa It's not even his wealth. Similarly, we many people they pride themselves on their relationships, on our children, on our family. Our family, our children, our relationships, they will also be beneficial to us in this dunya, but there will come a time when we leave this world, our brother or the one who is closest to us, he will put us inside the grave and then he will come outside the grave. Inside the grave, there will be no wealth that we take with us and there will be no one who will accompany us. There's only one thing that a person will take with them inside their grave, and that is their amal. So that is why we need to become people of amal. Wealth and awlad and children and relationships and spouse, these are all things which are an opportunity for us, an opportunity through which we can do amalus salih. But the one thing that will go with us inside our grave will be amalus salih, will be our amal, whether good or bad. That is why it should be our concern, our fikr. We should be thinking that every single day we should be thinking that how can I increase my amalus salih. When we start our day, we should be monitoring our day, that I want to spend these 24 hours in such a way that I can maximize my amalus salih. Maximizing amalus salih means that we spend the day in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to spend that day. We do our faraiz and wajibat. We spend time in zikr. We spend time in nawafil, in sunan. And then everything that we do it according to the hukum of Allah Ta'ala and the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Anything that we do which is according to the hukum of Allah, whether it's eating or whether it's any mundane activity of the dunya, sleeping, changing our clothes, going to work, being careful about the etiquettes at work, honesty, to be trustworthy, truthful, to be soft spoken. When we engage with other people, our family members, to give them their rights. Our deen is not just confined with tasbih and salah and fasting. Our deen, it spreads over every single aspect of our life. The way we interact with our family, the way we work in our offices, the way we behave when we are outside in the marketplace, and also when we are inside, and also when we are in doing ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single aspect of our life is governed by the teachings of our deen. Alhamdulillah, we have the teachings of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam for everything. To live such a day where we act according to the hukum of Allah and we do ittiba of the sunnah of Nabi, sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this entire day will be counted as a day of deen, as ibadah. This will be amal. This will be an amalus salih that will go with us in our grave. And our akabirin, they were masters and experts of this. Salaf Salihin, if you look and we read their lives, they were experts about mastering their skill, that they would spend the day in such a way that they would maximize their amalus salih. One of the things that helps a person to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the day is to engage in masnoon du'as, to read, recite, to memorize, and then to recite masnoon du'as. These are du'as that the Prophet ﷺ used to recite for different occasions, and these are available quite readily in different small booklets, also available online. These du'as are very easy to memorize, but their barakat is immense. They have so much barakah. Number one, because they are sunnah du'as. So anyone who has a habit of reciting these du'as, they will be doing ittabai sunnat. And because of ittabai sunnat, in kuntum tuhibbun Allah, fattabi'uni yuhibbukumullah. Allah Ta'ala says in Quran that if you do ittiba of the Messenger sallallahu yuhibbukumullah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. So whoever has a habit of reciting these du'as during the day, they become the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will increase in this love for Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will draw them close to Himself. And additionally, a person will also get the reward of being in a state of zikr throughout the day. Because these are du'as which remind a person of Allah Ta'ala, connect a person to Allah Ta'ala. They are very effective in ruju ilallah, what we call inabat ilallah, turning to Allah, inclining, yearning for Allah. And the reason is because after every few minutes, there is some activity that we will do. And this is something which we have experienced, that after every few minutes, if we are careful and conscious about how we are spending our day, we'll see that after every few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes less, sometimes more, there is going to be some activity that we are doing for which there is a sunnah way of doing amal, for which there is a sunnah dua mentioned in the books. So for example, if we start our day, we wake up, there's a dua for that. Then when we change our clothes, there is a dua for that. When we enter the restroom, there is a dua for that. When we relieve ourselves, there is a dua for that. When we make dua, when we make wudu, there is a dua for that. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, there is a dua. When we come out of the restroom, there is a dua for that. When we walk to the masjid, when we leave the house, there is a dua. When we are walking to the masjid, there is a dua. When we enter the masjid, there is a dua. Inside the masjid, there is a sunnah dua. Leaving the masjid, there is a dua. Entering our house, there is a dua. Looking at our family members, there is a dua. And after every few minutes, there is a dua. And any person who makes this their ma'mul, then it will be as if they're sprinkling their day with the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their whole day will be sprinkled with the zikr, with the barakah, with the noor of that zikr. They will remain in a state of inabat ilallah, and perpetually inclining and yearning towards Allah Ta'ala. And this is a tremendous fayda, tremendous benefit. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentions that the Prophet ﷺ's sunnah was to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kulli ahyanihi, every moment of his life, every moment during the day. This was one of the real sunnahs of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, to be in a state of zikr all the time. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ used to make these du'as, because the heart was always connected to Allah Ta'ala. For us, for many of us, our heart may not be connected automatically, so we can do some reverse engineering, back solving, that we use these du'as as a way to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we make dua to Allah Ta'ala to let the haqiqat and the reality of these du'as seep into our heart. And this also brings another fayda and benefit, which is that what these du'as are, if we memorize these du'as and if we reflect on the meanings are very ajib and gharib of these du'as. very profound, very deep. They're so deep and profound that if a person was to think and reflect and try to come up with the meaning and try to come up with what dua am I supposed to make at this time, human akal would not be able to reach that level, would not be able to reach that high level which the Prophet ﷺ was able to reach because of wahi. These are mulhim min Allah. These are du'as which are inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is an ihsan of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ has left behind this treasure, this gold for us. And these are such beautiful du'as that if we learn these du'as with the meaning, we'll realize that what we are asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's nothing less than gold. And these du'as are so profound and so comprehensive in their meaning that every single khair of this dunya and akhirah are encompassed in this dua, in these du'as. Every single khair, every single afiyat, every single bhalai and blessing. Subhanallah. These are the barakat of these du'as. So for example, one of the sunnah du'as is that when we enter the restroom, we are supposed to seek refuge from jinnat, whether they're male jinnat or female jinnat. Now this is a hakikat which human being on their own akal would not be able to understand, would not be able to come to this conclusion, that when I enter this place of filth, I should seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from these other creations. But the Prophet says, this is the eye of Nabuwat. This is the eye of revelation of Wahi. The Prophet gave us these teachings that when you enter the restroom, you should make this dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. That Allah, I seek refuge in you from the male jinnat and the female jinnat. And when we spend our day, there are two other makhluk who are with us all the time, even though we are not able to see them. First, jinnat are with us, and then angels are with us. In Quran, we make dua. In Sharr al-Waswas al-Khannas, Allazi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas minal jinnati wan nas. This shaitan sometimes comes in the form of insan, and other times its shaitan comes in the form of jinnat. So shaitan will put these wasawis in our hearts. So the way to safeguard, the Prophet is giving us a dua. And there are so many such duas where so much barakah, so many blessings. Allahu Akbar. And then another ajib faida is that many of these sunnah duas, they begin with Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi allazi at'amani hadha wa razaqanihi min ghayri hawlin minni wa la quwwata. Alhamdulillahi allazi kasani hadha wa razaqanihi min ghayri hawlin minni wa la quwwata. Alhamdulillah, when you complete your food. Alhamdulillahi allazi bi ni'matihi tatimmu salihat. And in many of these du'as, we are starting with the hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hamd means that we are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are doing shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are showing our gratitude to Allah ta'ala, and showing gratitude to Allah ta'ala and doing shukr of the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This itself is a tremendous ibadat. Shukr, being grateful, is a tremendous ibadat. It's a standalone ibadat. And we get the sawab and reward of making this ibadah simply by reciting these masnoon du'as. A person's name will be written amongst the shakireen, that this person does shukr of Allah Ta'ala. And the zabata Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, that those who do shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah Ta'ala will increase His blessings upon them. La in shakartum la azidannakum. And you, subhanallah, we have blessings, we do shukr. Allah Ta'ala will put barakah in those blessings, Allah will increase and further those blessings for us. Any one amal which is to recite sunnah du'as, and we are seeing that so many barakat and so many blessings are hidden and embedded in these du'as. But the shart and the condition is that we need to be regular in making these du'as. Then we'll be able to unlock the power. And secondly, when we recite these du'as, we should recite them with certainty, with conviction, that whatever we are asking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to us. Whatever barakat are there in these du'as, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide those barakat and blessings to us. We should make these du'as with yaqeen in our heart. I want to mention one or two stories, one or two events rather, which happened very recently in this month of Ramadan, and then one happened just last week or 10 days ago. In a Ramadan, we had one of our talks in which we mentioned some of the teachings of our Akabarin, which we learned from the Quran and Sunnah about how to die a good death. And one of the Sunnah du'as which comes in books of Hadith is that there is a particular dua that if a person recites this dua 25 times every day, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless them with barakah in their maut and barakah after their maut. And when that person passes away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the rank of shaheed even if they pass away on their bed. This is the fazilat that is mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, that if a person recites the following dua 25 times every day, then when they pass away, they will be given the reward of shaheed even if they pass away on their bed. And what is that dua? Very simple dua. It has two sentences. Allahumma barik lana fil maut wa fima ba'd al maut. Allahumma barik lana fil maut. That, O Allah, give barakat to us in our death, wa fima ba'd al maut, and all the stages that will happen after our death. So this dua we mentioned in one of our talks, one of our lectures. And then one of our students who lives in America, her father, we received an email in Ramadan that her father was sick, and she asked to make dua and said that the doctors have given up hope and it seems it's the last stage of his life. Her father was in Pakistan and she, her husband, her kids were in America, in the US. So it was Ramadan, we read that email, and then when right the last Ashra was about to start, my wife, she mentioned to me that the father, he passed away. And our student, she was able to make it. She came to Pakistan, Islamabad, with her husband. She was there when the father passed away. And we tried to contact them for Tazia, but this was just the start of Etikaf. So we were at the airport when we received the news. We tried calling but weren't able to get through. So then we made intention that inshallah, when we come back after Etikaf, then we'll call them and do Taziyat. We sent a message for Taziyat. Bahral, we didn't know the details what happened. So then after Eid, Allah Kishan, we received an email from them. And in that email, she emailed me and my wife. and she mentioned the details of what happened. And she told us that her father, he had a stroke, and as a result of that, he went into coma, and the doctors said that he won't be able to survive. His condition is irreversible. There's no chance of improvement. And his whole body was paralyzed. He wasn't able to move any limb. And medically speaking, there was no hope. So the couple, she said that we started making preparations for coming to Pakistan, because the doctors had told us that if you want, you can come and you can be in these last stages. So she said that we were trying, but they have three kids, mashallah. So the youngest, there was some passport issue or some visa issue, and for some reason that issue was not resolved. So they had to leave behind their kids with their in-laws, and husband and wife, they flew from the US to Islamabad. They came to Islamabad, and she said that we reached Islamabad in time. I was with my father, and I saw his condition, but there was no movement, there was no progress, and he couldn't hear us, he couldn't talk to us, he couldn't even see us. Incidentally, her husband was a doctor. So he had said that, medically speaking, there is no chance of anything happening. But she wanted to be with her father. And she then said that I really wanted my father, that in the last moments, to be able to recite the kalima. Even though I knew my husband told me that it's medically not possible. Because when a person goes in such condition, then it's irreversible, they cannot come back. But she had hope, and then she wrote something in that email. She said that throughout my flight from the US to Pakistan, there was this one particular dua that I was making. And it was the same Sunnah dua. Allahumma barik lana fil maut wa fi ma ba'dal maut. But she says that I changed the words of that dua. Instead of saying Allahumma barik lana, that Allah put barakah for me in my maut, I used to say Allahumma barik li abi fil maut wa fi ma ba'dal maut. Meaning that Allah put barakah in my father in his death, and wa fi ma ba'dal maut, after his death. And throughout my journey, the whole flight, I was reciting this dua. This one dua. And when I came to Pakistan again, this was that dua that I was reciting. And then on the day my father passed away, something very ajib happened. I was with my father, and his blood pressure was dropping. It was past midnight. And this is 19th of Ramadan, the night of 19th of Ramadan, Ghaliban. Yani the last Ashra had started. And when the family was informed that the blood pressure is dropping, all of them, she says, all of us rushed to the hospital, and I started reciting Quran. And then I got near my father's right ear and gently placed my hands on his hand and started to recite the kalima, La ilaha illallah, yani doing talqeen. And I did this talqeen about 30 or 40 times. And then she says that Allah ki shan, I saw that my father's tongue started to move. My father's tongue started to move. And medically this was impossible. But she says that I saw the tongue was moving, and it began to move, and not just began to move. but also started saying La ilaha illallah. And it did this for about 5 or more than 5 times. And she says that I was surprised, and my mother was with me. I asked my mother, my siblings, my chacha, even the nurse was there. I asked all those who were in the room, I asked them, can you see the tongue moving? And they said, yes, we can see. I asked my mother, can you see the tongue moving? She said, I can see. I asked my siblings one by one, can you see? They said that, yes, we can see the tongue moving. They saw the tongue moving and they saw the kalma with their own eyes. La ilaha illallah. And then in that state, he passed away. So this is a true story of one of our students, which happened this Ramadan. And this is the power of the Sunnah dua. Later, when I came back from Etikaf, I spoke to the husband. And he then gave me some details and he said, medically, Sheikh Sab, the condition was something like condition 3 or 4 in terms of severity of that coma, paralysis. I didn't understand the medical jargon. But what I understood was that medically it was impossible for someone to move their lips, and not just move the lips, to be able to say something. But then at that time we understood that the ilm that medicine and science can give us, it's ilm, it's knowledge. But there's another type of ilm that we get, which is coming from wahi, which is coming from min indillah, coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that ilm is the ilm of wahi. And this ilm of wahi is telling us that if anyone recites this dua, Allahumma barik lana or Allahumma barik li abi fil maut wa fima ba'dal maut, then Allah Ta'ala will put barakah. Because that's what that is the dua that you're making. That Allah put barakah in maut and fima ba'dal maut. So this is the barakah of yaqeen in these sunnah duas. She had yaqeen in those duas and she recited those duas and continually recited those duas. And then Allah Ta'ala put barakah. Allah Ta'ala made everyone see that barakah. And then I was thinking about another thing in this dua, that Allahumma barik lana fil maut. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted this part of the dua, that Allah Ta'ala put barakah at the time of passing away. But you made the dua for the whole thing. Wa fima ba'dal maut. Even after death, Allah Ta'ala please put barakah. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the first part, then surely Allah Ta'ala would have accepted the second part as well. Allah Ta'ala would have put barakah in all the stages that will come after death. And in all the stages after death means everything, all the way till akhirah, all the way till Jannah. And in one small dua, the Prophet ﷺ taught us a zabardast, a very effective way for asking all the khair that a person can ask for. That Allah grant me barakah in my passing away, in my death, and all the manazil, all the marahil, all the stages that will come after death, Allah Ta'ala put barakah. What more does a person need? Subhanallah. We haven't seen the power of these du'as because we, number one, either don't have a habit of reciting these du'as, and for many of us who do recite our du'as, sunnah du'as, we don't have yaqeen. We have shak and shubhat. I'm reciting this dua, I don't know if it will be accepted. I don't know whether I'll get this. I don't know whether this barakah will come. We have shukuk. And when we have shak, then ana inda zanni abdi bi. Allah Ta'ala says that I am with my servant as he thinks about me. If he doubts me, if he has doubts about my promises, then that is the way I would want to treat that person as well. Then we will be doubtful. The outcome will be doubtful. But for a believer, we're not supposed to doubt. These are promises that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made to us. And waman asdaqu min Allahi qila. Who can be more truthful than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their speech? Yani in dunya, if a pious person promises something to you, we trust that person. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making a promise to us. And we have mistrust for Allah. Imagine how grave, how big this sin is. To be badguman of the promises of Allah, to be badguman of Allah, to have misgivings about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our weakness. This is what shaitan does with us, that he puts this skepticism in our du'as. We're supposed to make these du'as with yaqeen in our heart. We are not able to see the realities, but our Prophet ﷺ saw the realities, saw the haqiqat of Jannat and Jahannam. The Prophet ﷺ was made to see all the haqiqat, all the realities of Akhirah when he went for Miraj. So we have yaqeen. And the Prophet ﷺ then is teaching us these du'as, that make dua in such and such a way, and you will get these barakat, you will get these blessings, you will get afiyat, you will get this and you will get that. And you'll be able to save yourself from this and you'll be able to save yourself from that. This is the ihsan of the Prophet ﷺ upon us. This is the treasure that we have. This is a tragedy that we call ourselves as Muslims. We have this big, immense treasure with us in the form of Sunnah du'as, and still we don't make use of this. We don't use this treasure. Yani, what difference? There is no difference between us and the unbelievers then. They are also people of the dunya, and we, despite having this wahi, these sunnah du'as, this gold, we discard them, we ignore them, and we, like them, are also chasing the wealth of the dunya, the money of the dunya. We had this other thing with us, which is wahi, the help of Allah, the barakah from Allah. In fact, this is one of the greatest things about being a Muslim, that we get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the madad of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We get the assistance and help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the way to get the help from Allah. This is the way to get that help from the unseen, that we make use of these masnoon du'as. We do ittiba sunnah. We adorn ourselves with the sunnah, zahiran wa batina, from the tips of our head to the soles of our feet. Then we will be able to unlock the power of our deen. That same power which was there with the Sahaba Ikram. So this is the barakah of a dua, that Allah Ta'ala puts barakah, and this barakah happens in many ways. This is also ajib, that we don't even know that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give barakah to us at the time of death if we make this dua. I was mentioning, there's another event that happened, which happened just a few days ago, where my own family, my wife, her mamu passed away. And he was what you call Sahib-e Firash. And he bedridden for the last 4, 5, 6 years. And again, deep coma, where it was like a vegetative state on the bed, but not able to move any of his limbs. Not able to give harakat to any of his limbs. And the only sign of life was just that he would be able to breathe. And he was just breathing, and that was the only sign of life. Otherwise, there was no response, no movement. There was a room that was dedicated for him, and there was an attendant nurse. They would come, feed him with tubes. Otherwise, there was no response. And in a vegetative state, so you can understand. And in this state, in fact, I also met him, and I also saw his condition. And this was a condition which lasted for several years, like 4 or 5 years. And about a few months ago, his family members were telling us that Abu is in a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain, lot of dard. And by looking at his condition, they would, all of us, we came to the conclusion that this is, what happened when a person is about to leave this world. There is a marala or a stage that is called Sakaratul Maut. Sakaratul Maut is a state when a person, the curtain is lifted, the veils are lifted, and you're able to see the manazil of Akhirah. You're able to see, but you're still in this dunya, you haven't passed away. But Sakarat have started. Yani, this is a very difficult time for a person when the ruh is being extracted from a person and a person is in a lot of pain. And this is something which is also established in Hadith Mubarakah, several Hadith Mubarakah, that there was a case of a person who was in Sakaratul Maut. His ruh was not able to leave. So the Prophet ﷺ asked that one of his family members, his mother or khala, should make dua for that young man so that the ruh can leave that person and this person can be relieved of that pain, of that difficulty that he is facing at this time of his death. Sakaratul Maut. So they, this condition of Sakaratul Maut was very prolonged. For about 3-4 years, the same condition and the same pain, the same intensity of that pain, and the ruh was not departing. So when we read this dua, we heard this dua from our teachers. At one point, I mentioned this dua to his son. MashaAllah, he had 3 sons, and all of them are married, MashaAllah. One of them was very religious and very close to me, still very close to me. And I had mentioned that this is a particular dua that comes in the Sunnah. And whoever, in the Hadith Mubarakah tells us that whoever recites this dua 25 times every day, then if that person passes away, even if they pass away on the bed, Allah Ta'ala will give them the maqam of shahada. Allah Ta'ala will put barakah in their death and even after death. And I recited this dua, Allahumma barik lana fil maut wa fima ba'dal maut. And then I also said to him that we should have a habit of making this dua for ourselves, but also for our parents. And we can change the word slightly and make dua in such a way that Allahumma barik li abi fil maut wa fima ba'dal maut. That, oh Allah, grant barakah to my father. Someone can make this for their mother. Allahumma barik li ummi fil maut wa fima ba'dal maut. So anyway, I told him that you can change the words and you can make this dua for your father. That conversation ended, and then I think last Thursday I went after Asr. Then for Maghrib I went to pray Salah, and then when I came back, my wife, she said that we have to go, my mamu passed away. So I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. We made preparation, and then straight away we went because we knew that janaza and then ghusl, we wanted to be there. So we reached their place, and first we went and did tazia, and then when I met the son, and one of the first sentences he said to me when he saw me was that you had mentioned this particular dua, but for long I wasn't able to make this dua. I wasn't able to bring myself to that state where I could utter this dua, where I could accept that my father would pass away. Because the dua, the meaning is that Allahumma barik li abi fil maut, that Allah grant barakah to my father in his death. So he said that I wasn't able to bring myself to say these words. But then today, after praying Asr Salah, Ajib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put these words in my heart, and I started uttering these words, started making this dua. He said, I started making this dua after Asr, and within a few minutes before Maghrib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this whole matter easy for us, and the ruh of my father was able to depart. And he had a ruh which was not able to depart for 3-4 years, and all the people around him were saying that there's a lot of pain and intensity, and sakarat kaifiyat is there. And just after Asr, he started reciting this dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created ease and barakah. And inshallah, we have umeed and we hope and we make dua that just like the first part of that dua was accepted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept the second part and grant barakah after maut as well. So we don't even know how much barakat there is in this dua. Human mind was not able to imagine, will not be able to conceive, because this dua is coming from wahi. This is coming from the Prophet ﷺ. And our iman is that the Prophet ﷺ, the dua has barakah, and whatever the Prophet ﷺ has taught us, if we make that dua with yaqeen, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make us see that barakah with our own eyes. Again, our problem is that either we don't make this our mamul, or we don't have yaqeen. Anyone who makes this a habit of reciting masnoon duas and has yaqeen, then Allah Ta'ala, you don't need this bayan from me. You don't need me to tell you the barakah of this dua. Allah Ta'ala will show the barakah to you with your own eyes. You don't need anyone to tell you the barakah of sunnah duas. Allah Ta'ala will show you. You will experience the barakah yourself. It won't be ilmul yaqeen for you. It will be haqqul yaqeen. It will be haqqul aynul yaqeen. These du'as are coming from the Prophet ﷺ. Even the kuffar Makkah used to say that the Prophet ﷺ is as-sadiq al-amin. He is truthful and trustworthy. These are truthful words coming from the Prophet ﷺ. That anyone who makes this dua with yaqeen and has a habit of making this dua, Allah Ta'ala will give them the barakah. Allah Ta'ala will give them that rank of shahada. Allah Ta'ala will give them barakah after the maut as well. And this is just one dua. And the reason why I wanted to mention these one or two stories was so that we understand that this is the case with all the sunnah duas. With every single sunnah dua and sunnah amal, if we have yaqeen, we will see the barakah with our own eyes. Before we end, there is one sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ has taught us, which is a sunnah zikr, which is very simple, very easy, and that is to recite istighfar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi min kulli zambin wa atubu ilay. And whoever recites istighfar, again there is so much barakah. And in fact, istighfar, Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, there is so much barakah for reciting istighfar. That whoever recites istighfar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive their sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive their sins. وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ. Allah will help them with money. Yani Allah will improve their financial situation, give them wealth. وَالْبَنِينَ. Allah Ta'ala will give them awlad. If they don't have a child, if they don't have awlad, Allah will bless them with awlad. Then Allah Ta'ala will give them anhar, streams and rivers and fields and crops. The needs and necessities of this dunya that all of us want, all of us desire for, all of us have fikr. We make so much effort for these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised in the Quran that whoever makes istighfar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help them with these things. And this is not even some za'if hadith. This is the hukum, this is the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made in the Quran. وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا. Who can be more truthful than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But we don't make istighfar. Or we make istighfar but we don't have yaqeen. To make istighfar with yaqeen, then we will be able to see the barakah. The Prophet's sunnah was to recite istighfar 100 times every day. 100 times. So at the very minimum, very least, we should also try to develop this habit of reciting istighfar 100 times, and then better to recite it 200 times every day. And then there is no upper limit. This can be your zikr for chalta phirte. You're walking, you're driving, you can do istighfar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi min kulli dhanbin wa atubu ilay. You don't need to be in a state of wudu to make this zikr. Even if you're not in wudu, you can make this zikr. At least 200 times, 100 times in the morning and 100 in evening. And then as much Allah Ta'ala gives us tawfiq, we should recite istighfar. And then we will see the barakah with our own eyes. In one hadith, the Prophet said that man lazim al istighfar, that whoever makes istighfar lazim upon himself or herself. The key word is lazima. Not just that you make istighfar one day, then you leave it, and then after some time you remember that I should be making istighfar, and again you restart, and again you stop, and then again you restart. No. Lazima. You have a consistent, constant habit of reciting istighfar multiple times during the day, then ja'alallahu lahu, Allah Ta'ala will make for you min kulli hammin faraja. First thing, there will be 3 blessings that the Prophet will mention in this hadith. This is mentioned in Sunnah Abi Dawood. 3 blessings, and the first is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you faraja in every ham. Ham means every grief. In every grief, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you out from your grief and will give you tasalli, consolation, contentment. Yani Allah Ta'ala will remove your worries, will remove your grief if you have a habit of making istighfar, kasrat istighfar every day. This is the first barakah. Second, وَمِن كُلِّ ذِيقٍ مَخْرَجًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you an exit from every hardship and difficulty. This is different from the first. First was every grief that you have, pain that you have, sadness, Allah will remove your sadness and grief, will give you contentment in your heart. Faraj. Oh. And then the second is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you out from your difficulties and hardships and grant you makhraj, give you an exit. Sometimes it happens that a person is stuck with their circumstances, stuck with their halat, stuck with their condition, stuck with their work, stuck in their office, stuck in some relationships, stuck in some aspect of their dunya, or even stuck in some aspect of their deen, and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see the hope. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them hope, will bring them out of that darkness, will bring them out of that dark tunnel when a person has a habit of making istighfar, when they recite istighfar with kasrat. And number 3, وَرَزَقَهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. Allah Ta'ala will give them rizq from avenues where you can't even imagine. And Allah Ta'ala will give you unimaginable rizq from avenues and places where a person can't even dream of. Our jobs are some things, are places where we understand that if I work, I will get rizq from this avenue, from this place. The promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making is that I will give you rizq haythu la yahtasib. La yahtasib. गुमान भी नहीं है. Person cannot even imagine from where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them and how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them. Today, 9 out of 10 people, they are worried about their risk. You ask them, they're stuck in some financial difficulty or another. Sometimes both husband and wife are earning, still there are problems of risk. And this is a worldwide problem, money, risk, provision. खाएंगे कहाँ से, कमाएंगे कहाँ से? Where will we eat from? How will we earn? And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising. That if you make zikr, if you have this zikr, kasrat istighfar, then I will give you risk. Unimaginable risk. And three things are promised in this hadith. And in these three things, all of our problems will get their solution. This is the solution. Istighfar is a one-step solution for all our problems. And this is something that we should develop in our habit, daily habit. Our Akabreen, our Salaf Salehin, they understood the secret of istighfar. That's why they would recite istighfar abundantly throughout the day. Hundreds of istighfar. Anything that would happen, any moment they would feel that the rahmat of Allah Ta'ala has stopped, they would make istighfar. Any musibat they would feel during the day, immediately istighfar would come on their tongue. Any fights or in-house fighting or any issues, flashpoints, any such thing that would happen to them, immediately their heart, their mind would turn towards istighfar. They would increase their istighfar and then Allah Ta'ala would show them. Allah Ta'ala would remove that problem. Allah Ta'ala would give them ease instead of that hardship. And in Quran, Allah Ta'ala has mentioned that many of these musibatin that come to us, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ. It comes to us because of our own bad deeds, our sins. And the way to wipe away our sins is to make istighfar. Every time when a person commits a sin, there is some problem that will come in our life. Some musibat, some calamity, some worry, some sadness, some difficulty. Person will feel that as if the rahmat of Allah Ta'ala has stopped. It's because of our sins. Solution is to increase our istighfar. Remedy is kasrat istighfar. One old man, he said that any time I would have fight with my wife, I would recognize that this is because of some sin that I've done. Immediately I would increase my istighfar, and within no time I would feel that my wife, she would come back to me, and then we would be able to solve our dispute. Fudail bin Ayaz rahmatullah alayh, he said that I noticed that any time when I sinned, something or someone below me, yani under my authority, they would begin to disobey me. When I would sin, I would notice that sometimes my children, they would not listen to me. Sometimes other people below, under my authority, my employees, they would not listen to me. Sometimes my wife, she would disobey me. Sometimes the camel or the horse on which I had to ride, that camel or horse would disobey me, would disobey me. So this is the ta'asir, this is the effect of sin. That some musibat or calamity or difficulty will come in our life. And on the other hand, if we make istighfar, Allah will remove that. But when you make istighfar, we're supposed to make istighfar with feeling. Many times we make istighfar and our istighfar is worthy of another istighfar. Yani we make istighfar with so much ghaflat, with so much heedlessness, so absent-minded, that istighfar is worthy of another tasbih of istighfar. Hazrat Rabia Basriya rahmatullah alayhi used to say that our istighfar deserves another tasbih of istighfar. So that should not be how we are reciting istighfar. We're supposed to recite istighfar with the presence of our heart, with the feeling of our heart, with some remorse and regret. And then when we have this remorse and regret and we make istighfar, then inshallah those barakat are mentioned. Those barakat will come before us. We'll see those barakat. You won't need anyone to tell you the barakat of istighfar. You will see them with your own eyes. You will experience them in your own life. This is a tragedy that we don't recite istighfar. And even for those who do recite istighfar, we don't do it abundantly. So we should remove this shortcoming from our life. We should remove this shortcoming and we should make intention to become people of istighfar. So we make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable all of us that we can adorn ourselves with the sunnah. We can beautify ourselves with the zahiri sunnah, the batini sunnah. This is a haqiqat. This is the best part about being a Muslim, that we have a treasure in the form of sunnah, in the form of sunnah amal, and in the form of sunnah du'as. This is the best part of being a Muslim, because this is the way through which we can get the help from Allah Ta'ala. This is the way through which we can get that special mercy from Allah Ta'ala, that special love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these du'as are the solution for all the problems. I just gave you one or two examples today. When you open up the books of hadith, you will begin to recite those du'as and you see those du'as. These are ajeeb du'as. From the smallest of matters that we face in our life, from the greatest of blessings that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single thing is there in these du'as. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable all of us to learn these sunnah du'as, to use these du'as at the right time. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us the barakah and the blessings of these du'as. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Before we make dua, we'll make a short silent zikr of the heart for a few moments. So close your eye and bow your head. Disconnect yourself from everything else in this world and make intention that, Ya Allah, you have said in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرُكُمْ, that if you remember me, I will remember you. So, Ya Allah, I'm remembering you deep down inside my heart, and I ask you that you remember me by showering your rahmah, your mercy upon my heart, by cleaning my heart of its filth, of its sins, by inclining my heart towards your zikr, towards your remembrance. And Ya Allah, my heart in gratitude and shukr is calling upon your Isme Azam, Isme Jalala, Allah, as if my heart is secretly, silently saying, Allah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Make dua. Subhana Rabbil al-Wahhab. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعبادك الصالحون، وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم آتي نفسي تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها، أنت وليها ومولاها. اللهم بارك لنا في الموت وفيما بعد الموت. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وقلبا خاشعا وعملا متقبلا وتوبة نسوحا. اللهم إنا نسألك إيمانا كاملا ويقينا صادقا ورزقا واسعا وقلبا خاشعا ولسانا ذاكرا ورزقا حلالا طيبا وتوبة قبل الموت وراحة عند الموت ومغفرة ورحمة بعد الموت والعفو عند الحساب والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار برحمتك يا عزيز يا غفار. رب زدني علما والحقني بالصالحين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على حبيبه خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.